Good morning, everybody. Hi, it is Stacy. We are walking in my shoes, and this is Loving My Veteran this morning. So this morning's a little different. I'm on the road with Carl. We are riding down the road. So I decided to do it remotely this morning. So the sun's a little bright, sorry. But we're going to talk about things today. A few housekeeping things, all that good stuff. Let me get a little drink going on here. It is coffee. I promise you, it's just in a Yeti. So it is a good Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Tuesday.
It's Wednesday. It's a good Wednesday morning. So we're off a day here. Just wanted to say good morning and let's get our day started. A few housekeeping things as usual. There is a fundraiser posted on the page and on the group. Elise has decided she came up with the idea of letting our home-based businesses do fundraisers. It's being coordinated through Melissa as a way to raise funds for Loving My Veteran. So please go check out the link there. And she's doing Origami Owl, and Melissa's going to post us a schedule of other people who will be doing it as well. If you're a home-based business and you want to do something, just reach out to Melissa and she can get y'all set up. So today we're going to talk about threats. I posted a post a little while ago about monsters. And the monsters and the demons that they're kind of kept inside. But that ties us into the next step, which is called threats. And threats are things that we perceive are real and that they may be real, and we look for scenarios and we always look for something that may go wrong. My son's getting ready to have a baby, and so it's interesting when he called last night how what was not a threat or an issue before, all of a sudden last night it's like, Mom, this is dead. And it was like, okay, David, chill out, and they're not baby proofing the house, obviously, because she's not going to be walking immediately. But you get that threat. You get that threat about baby proofing the house and putting the chemicals up. And as your kid grows up more, making sure the panhandles are turned in so they don't get burned. Those are all threats. Those are things that can cause harm. And so we all live with them. We live with them every day. And they just magnify based on our experiences and things we've either seen, done, or encountered, or possibly seen, done, or encountered. So take, for example, for most people, your threat is something that is in your immediate bubble, like a pending storm coming may even be a threat to you. And I know that those of us that are sitting on right at Florida are kind of keeping our eyes on the tropics, and they get a thing on the news that says, watch the tropics. And we do. And that's a potential threat. So that, as it gets closer, that threat becomes more and more in your bubble. That threat is not threatening Michelle, who's in Colorado. I mean, that doesn't affect her. But it does affect us, so that is in our bubble. And so we kind of think about that impending threat being there. I know that as a first responder, my threat assessment of a situation on the scene was always what's in my immediate scene. What could be my immediate danger in the scene that I'm in? And one of the first things we learned in firefighting and first responding, paramedic-wise, is like vehicles that have had front-end crashes, don't ever walk in front of the bumper, because those bumpers are hydraulic and they will like reduce the gas and it'll sling the bumper at you. And people inevitably do it. And we laugh. We don't really laugh at them, but we do kind of. They don't get hurt, so we just kind of say something after because they jump, because they walked in front of this bumper that we've all seen do this. So that becomes our threat. If we go to an active shooter scene, that becomes our threat. And our sense of awareness is what is in our immediate surrounding. Well, a veteran's mind is a little different. And this plays off of their PTSD, but it is not necessarily PTSD as everybody wants to say, oh my God, this is a PTSD moment. No, this is a veteran moment. People wake up, smell the coffee. This is the way it works. The threat is bigger because they see threats as any potential threat that can go on, any potential bad outcome, any potential scenario that causes harm to them or the ones they love is deemed a threat. So where we look at things completely different than they do, you've got to imagine every single scenario you talk about, every time you plan on taking a trip, every time you're going to the store, every time that anything happens, they are looking at everything potentially that can go wrong. Now, put that in your brain all the time. So all the time that is in your brain. All the time that is playing out over and over and over again in your mind. Okay? And actually, we do always think it's the worst possible outcome, because you said that he goes straight for the worst possible outcome. Carl does too a lot of times. And it's not that he necessarily thinks about the worst possible outcome all the time. It is he conveys the worst possible outcome all the time. They do think about good outcomes, but they always think about the worst possible outcome, so they're prepared. And that is something that's really hard for me to deal with at times, because I'm like, will you stop being so flippin' negative? Because everything becomes negative. I talked about it this morning. Carl and I were sitting on the couch, and it's sunny here imagine that, all of a sudden in Georgia. It's decided to be sunny after, 3 solid weeks of rain. It's sunny. And so I look at it as, wow, look, the sun's shining. It's hitting and reflecting off of the green leaves. You can see the blue sky. It is beautiful. Well, his mind is thinking, okay, the sun's shining, trees, green leaves, but what if there's that piece of cellophane sitting in the ground somewhere that the sun's going to concentrate on and catch the woods on fire? Now we have a woods fire behind our house. That is the way that their perception becomes. It doesn't mean that everything is negative in their life. It means that they think about every possible scenario. They always think about the worst case, every way it can go wrong, every situation that can go wrong, they plan for or they think about, so that they are planning for it, so that it is not a big deal when it happens, or they are ready for that scenario when it happens. What does that cause for us? Disengagement. Okay, that is one of the number one things we hear is they have checked out. They have disengaged. They are negative. We're going to go to a birthday party. Oh my God, I'm going to a birthday party. I'm not seeing a threat at a birthday party. What do they see? They see the immediate threat at the birthday party. They see any potential threat at the birthday party. I'm like, look, I just hope it's like yellow cake. Okay, because I'm not a big fan of non-yellow cake. Sorry, he's ordering my breakfast, so if you hear him talk, I'm sorry. But
Can I have a sausage and cheese croissant, please?
That's just
You want a sausage and cheese croissant?
one of the things
Yes, please.
that go on.
Nope. Yes, no egg.
It's just, it's in that perceived threat.
A vacation?
It's in that perceived
A mortgage
threat for
payment?
them. I mean, whatever
a big
you
old
can.
joint?
Will you stop?
She's
Hun,
laughing.
Hun, we're on the thing.
All right, I'll see you in a
He's
minute.
being ridiculous here.
I'm sorry.
So this perceived threat is always there. And we don't always get it, and we don't always understand it. And so it becomes very negative in our mindset. It becomes very negative in what we do. It creates a negative environment for us to be in. Those are the things that happen. And so we don't understand this disengagement. We don't understand how sometimes they appear stuck. And we say, oh my God, they're stuck. They're having a PTSD moment. No, they're not. They are assessing threats. There's a huge difference. They are assessing threats. It's from where they were trained to do. So in a way, it is very helpful to us, because every threat has been addressed. Everything has been handled. Everything has been dealt with. He's already got the worst case scenario. He's not running around like a chicken with no head. I am. But he's already handled it. He's handled every bit of it in his mind. He's already handled every piece of it in his mind. He is making the girl laugh.
See y'all later.
Because Carl has his famous COVID cup. What does it say? He has his famous COVID cup. So it says,
When the virus is over, I still want some of you to stay away from me.
yeah, his cup says, when the virus is over, I still want some of you to stay away from me. So even things like the virus, I mean, you know, what is that perceived threat? Is that a perceived threat for them? Absolutely. It becomes a perceived threat. So when you live in a world where there's lots of perceived threats, we tend to get dragged down because they are so negative in their outcome, in what they're thinking, in what they're saying. It doesn't mean they're always thinking it, but it means they're saying it. And then we get mad. Well, why are you so negative all the time? And then the very next breath, we're like, you never communicate with me. Y'all can't have it both ways. I can't have it both ways, and I do it all the time. I want my cake, you know, and I want to eat it too. I want the whole package. So I deal with the perceived threats. I want him to be prepared. I want him to communicate what's bothering me, but I want it on my terms. I want the 5-minute version. I don't want the 50-minute version of how you got to this threat. I want the 5-minute version. Hey, look, the storm is coming. I'm a little concerned. Can we do this? Yep, that's what I want. But that's not what you get, because that's not how their brain thinks. So then it becomes that song that never ends, right? And you know, y'all know how I feel about the lamb chop theory, because it goes on and on and on and on and on. But that's the reality that we all face. That is what goes on in our lives. That is what goes on in their heads. Because it's the fear of the unknown. It is the fear of the unknown that is way worse than the fear of the known. So when they have this known scenario, that even though they're creating it, now they know the possible outcomes, so their brain can much better compute and work and function in that environment. And I know that sounds strange, and I know you're going to be like, oh my God, she's lost her mind. But all of a sudden it's going to make sense, because that's the way it works for them. A trip to my mom's. Y'all, I just want to put the shit in the flipping car and let's go. Right? So it's like, let's pack the suitcase 2 days ahead of time, put it in the car the day before, so we can get out and get on the road the day we have to leave. Nope, that is not the way it works in our house. It is, let's finish packing the suitcase the morning we leave so we can make sure we have everything, because God forbid we might need this or this or this, or we might need it at home. And if we put the stuff in the suitcases in the car, what happens if something happens to the car between now and then we don't have our stuff? And so you're like, look, can we just go? Can we just put the shit in the car and let's move on down the road? No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Because that's not how they process things. That's not how they go forward in things. So those threats are very real to them. A lot of times you'll see them pushing us away. Pushing away is a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And I can tell when the stress level in our life goes up, okay? When the stress level in our life goes up, there is some outside influence coming into our lives. And it can be simple. It can be going on a trip. It can be making a big time purchase decision. It can be the situation in the world around us. It can be telling us to wear a mask or not wear a mask. It can be the rise of the gas prices. I know that a couple months ago, there was an issue with the pipeline. All of those things totally can be there. Oh, Ashley, we talk about this all the time. Ashley says that she loves that I can talk like this, freely talk like this with you right here, that her vet would get so upset with the brutal honesty. But it's true. I mean,
she has no clue that I'm fucking biting my tongue.
Are you biting your tongue?
I've been through a lot already.
Well, why can't you just say what you want to say?
Because I won't.
You won't. But he also feels that if we don't put it out there, people don't understand it, and it's about helping people. But No, it's every threat. Every threat. Any of those outside influences can change that potential threat. Any of those outside influences can change that potential threat. And then, you really want to make things worse? Do you realize what we do to increase the threat problem? Okay, the hardest part about I thought this was going to be simple when I started. Like, loving my veteran was going to be easy. I was going to tell y'all what was screwed up with them and how we could move forward. That was my mindset. You know, let me tell you what's screwed up with them and we can move forward. And the more I do this, the more I realize there is way more screwed up with me than there is with him. He's simple. He says that all the time. He's like, I'm simple, I'm simple, I'm simple. I'm like, no, you're not. You're the most complex person I know. But when I sit back and I really look at it, which was our conversation last night, by the way, when I sit back and I really look at it, he is way more simple than I am. Way more simple than I am. It is like, okay, I don't need all this, and I don't need that, and I don't need this, and this is the potential threat, and we got this, and this going, and just show me you love me with your actions. You don't have to say it all the time. And now we do say it all the time, but you don't have to say it all the time. And he's very simple. I am the one who is complex. I read into everything. Okay, like, I'm one of these people who never read the Cliff Notes or the little, what are they called, footnotes in a book.
Footnotes.
I never read those. And I guess the reason I didn't have to is because I read shit in between the lines anyway. And I added stuff in between the lines. And I overthought things. And I overdid it. And I do that a lot. Probably our biggest threat at times to our own happiness is Stacy overthinking. Now he's taking this side like, oh shit, she didn't really say that. Is Stacy overthinking? I do it all the time. I do it all the time. Like, he'll take a breath. And it's just this breath, right? Where he's kind of processing everything that goes on. And he's exhausted mentally from processing everything that goes on. Imagine how exhausting that would be. Right? So he takes this breath. And I'm like, what? And he's like, nothing, I'm just taking a breath. No, you're not. What does that really mean? And he's like, I'm just taking a breath. No, you're not. There's more to it than that. Stacy, it's just a breath. And so we'll find ourselves arguing over this. It's just a breath. It's just a breath. And it's not that I've done anything. Because the one thing I will tell you that I think that we all kind of take personally is I think that in our own minds, we all take personally that we're doing something wrong. When something doesn't go right, when they trigger, when there's a mood change, when they get worked up, when they get whatever, we all tend to take it personally and think we did that. What did I cause? What did I do to cause this situation? And sometimes we don't cause anything. Sometimes it's just them processing what is in their head, doing their thing, okay? And we don't cause it. But then when we push this issue, you gotta turn right in the light. Sorry.
Yeah, I know where I am.
I'm side seat driving, which is probably, other than yelling, is probably one of the biggest things that drive him nuts. But
They have no idea
what drives you crazy with me?
how much that drives me nuts.
What, when I side seat drive?
Yeah.
I side seat drive. He hates it. So what I'm saying with this is sometimes we're not responsible. And when we try to get in this mindset of, well, we're responsible for this. We did this. We did that. What did we do wrong? Now you've added a whole nother layer of what they're working through. Okay? You've added a whole nother layer of what they're working through. Because now it's, you said something to me. Now, what did I do that made you think that you did something wrong? And so you've added this very complex layer. And Christy, sometimes they do blame it on you all the time just because they're at a different level of their journey. Okay, let me tell you something, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm blessed because Carl was a long way through this journey and had tools and toolboxes and kind of knew how to do a lot of this first before we got to us. So I was blessed. But blame does happen. I mean, we all do it though. Go back to if you've had siblings. Go back to when people would get in trouble with siblings, right? Like your parents come in and are like, okay, which one of you did it? He did it. No, she did it. It's her fault. No, it's his fault. Nobody wanted to add up and say, it's our fault. Nobody wanted to say it's our issue. Okay, so that is part of it. Sometimes the blaming too that you see is that in this threat that they perceive, and protection is what they deal with, we are the person they protect. And so sometimes we become that added layer that just sets them off. If it was just me in the woods in my blanket, I wouldn't have to deal with you.
Oh, I've said that numerous times.
You did. You have. That life would be simpler for him if it was him, a pair of jeans, and his blanket in the woods. It would be simpler because he wouldn't have to deal with protecting me and the potential threats and protecting home and all these other things that come into play. He wouldn't have to do that, right? So, yeah, sometimes they do blame us and it comes out, it's your fault, when communication is not going from what's in here to out here is not always the best, and that comes from not being able to communicate well. It comes from not being able to communicate
between
well.
the brain and mouth gets fucking clogged.
It does. It gets horribly clogged. And so, why they're like, it's all your fault. Well, why didn't you get this? Or why didn't you get that? Or why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you get that? Or you forgot this at the grocery store. And sometimes,
I don't say that shit. I just simple about it. Oh, we're going to the store. What do we need? For the 4th time, sugar.
He does. He's kind of good about reminding me nicely. But we tend to just take so much of it, everything personally too. So you have to let some things go. And it is all part of mindset. It is truly part of mindset. It is understanding their concept of threat and how exhausting that is. Y'all think we're exhausted. Imagine that going on in your head all the time.
Have a 24-hour threat assessment. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Carl doesn't sleep. He does on and off in between, but it is never restful sleep. So even when we go to bed and I sit here, I'm like, I'm restless, I can't sleep, and he's like laughing at me because within 10 minutes I'm snoring, right? He's nowhere near that point, because at that point he tries to shut his mind off, because as long as we're both awake and sitting there, his mind's not going to shut off. He's always thinking about the worst outcome, the threats, the problems, the situations. He's always thinking about that. And that doesn't come easily. And I think when we learn to understand each other's mind, when we learn to understand the place where the other person is, it makes the journey easier, because you're understanding what you're talking to, what you're talking about, what they're facing, what you're facing. When you can get to the point where they understand how you see things. And I've said it to him. I've said to him, can I just have 24 hours of normal? And he looks at me and he laughs and he's like, what is normal? Yeah, it is good. It is good to acknowledge it, Sarah. Like, you can say, you can't say, I see you're in a place, because what you've done is you have thought for them. You can say, hey, it's coming across that you've got a lot going on in your head. Is there something I can do to help you through this? Or are you okay with this? Do you need me? I'm here for you. But for you to say, Because this is probably, if I have to list the arguments we get into, is when Carl will look at me and say, "You're wound." That drives me crazy because he doesn't know what my brain can handle all the time. Or I say to him, "What's going on? You're in a place," and he's not in a place. That is assuming we understand the other one. And one of his famous comments and statements is, "I wish I could put your brain, inside my head for just a few minutes so you could understand what I see." So for us to sit there and make the judgment of the other one makes it tough sometimes. So be careful when you verbalize what you're saying to them. And Christy, when you said, when I try to help my hubby at that point, he gets madder. They do sometimes. They can handle it on their own. Acknowledging that there may be something that you see that there may be.
That's something he's got to get over.
And then saying to them, "I'm here if you need me. And if you need to work it out alone, I get it." Because some things they can only work out alone. Carl will tell you, "I'm okay. I always tell you when I'm not." And that's true. Okay, but in the beginning, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to help. I wanted to do it. We were partners. We could get through this. We could handle it. We could do it together. That's what we're supposed to do. That's not always the way it works. Sometimes helping is just being present. Sometimes helping is giving space. And that comes from practice of communication skills. That doesn't come overnight. I assure you that doesn't come overnight. It's taken us a very long time to get to this point. This is not an easy point. And we're still not there 100% all the time by any means either. Just want you to know that. So, I'm going to pop off of here. We have something we absolutely have to do today. I want y'all to have a blessed day and just keep thinking about those potential threats and how they see potential threats. It is key when you start doing that. When you start seeing how they see potential threats. It will make you understand things. Okay? Oh, baby, I know. It's hard for me to understand that he didn't want my help either. I'm a fixer. That's what I do. I'm a fixer. But sometimes you can't. And it's not, and it will come. It will come, Christy. I promise you, it will come. But that is something that only he can do. You can't do it for him. And that's a whole nother thing that maybe we'll actually talk about tomorrow is what is your accountability and what is his? What Nikia's famous words, I'll use Nikia's famous words. We'll mend any fence that we've torn down together. But whatever fence you've torn down by yourself, you have to mend. And whatever fence I've torn down by myself, I have to mend. So we have accountability to each other personally, and we have accountability to us as individuals. So you have to know that there's a difference. All right,
No,
Joe.
there's a senior citizen in front of you and they can't get off the goddamn Geritol and get on the gas.
Well, that's also because they passed a deputy.
No, that wasn't a deputy.
Yeah, it was the office of Pierce County Sheriff's Office on the side of
Really?
it way back then. Yep.
That's
And
the
so
first time I've seen one.
now they're freaked out. Road Rage 101. All right, y'all have a blessed day. Today is Wednesday, so Stephanie will do Wellness Wednesday at 6:30.
No, it's Tuesday again.
No, it's not.
I know it's not.
Don't confuse my brain. I
Can I have
finally
some
got it
more?
straight. Yeah, torment. It is Wednesday. Stephanie does Wellness Wednesday today at 6:30. Tomorrow night we have Let's Talk. Please join us for Zoom where you can talk to us, and we do have the veterans on that can kind of give you a veteran's perspective as well. So don't forget to join us. That event and link is set up in the group. I hope y'all have a blessed Wednesday. I'm off of here, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.